New class teacher. The guy gets up from his seat and leaves, and the man angrily tells him not to be so self-confident. Tyann catches up with her classmate with the same offer to become a slave and be under the protection of her family. He looks at her, looking back. But the guy, just like before, thanks the girl for her concern and politely invites her to see him after the tests. Tyann frowns as he looks after Charlie and calls him ungrateful, with Salt standing behind him, equally frowning. He believes that his classmate is digging his own grave. The test begins, revealing hundreds of short, red creatures with evil eyes, their fangs flashing menacingly. The students habitually watch Charlie's test process from the screen, considering the difficulty higher than that of the other two. In response, someone retorts that he himself is to blame. Let him now pay for his pride. Charlie looks confused. The red goblins are coming at him. Their talent is excellent resistance to fire, and there are so many of them. He is sure that the former class teacher set this up. Laramie says that the boy is to blame for turning away from him, and now the 10,000-strong army will quickly sweep away the schoolboy's locusts and continue the march to the core. A student standing next to the man congratulates him on his victory with a smile, but he says that this is not a victory, but a useful lesson, since there can be no other way between a student and a teacher. The deputy director smiles reservedly, looking at her ward with hope. She says words of support out loud, confident that he will cope. Charlie sends his army of locusts into attack, and they immediately fly towards the approaching red goblins who are marching in a formation. They bring their hands to their chests, spreading their fingers, and with fanged smiles activate fire attack, flames flaring up in their red paws. Dozens of goblins surge forward, throwing out fiery clusters in front of them that moments later engulf nearby insects. Standing behind the explosions, Charlie notes with annoyance that the regular locusts do not take on opponents at all. He puts his hand forward and orders the self-detonating locust to enter the battle. A clot of energy forms under his palm, threads from which lead to small winged bodies. The red goblins, seeing their rivals approaching, distort their faces with hostility and anger, but this does not diminish the fact that they are surprised. Explosions are happening everywhere, resulting in the deaths of 400 red goblins, and in the midst of all this chaos, Charlie stands calmly. Two capsules open, and someone who noticed his classmates first notifies the rest of those present that Cyan and Salt have returned from their tests. The deputy director sympathetically says that it looks like this time the ward will have a hard time, and Kian, standing nearby, mentally confirms her own assumptions about the weakness of the locust. And Charlie sends a batch of magma locusts into battle. A series of powerful explosions with fountains of magma are followed by the killing of 3,000 red goblins, the remains of which fly in different directions, trying to escape. But some of them still manage to get close to Charlie's god sphere at an impermissible distance. One of the observers expresses the opinion of many, believing that this time the classmate is definitely finished. Even the hero will not be able to cope with 6,000 representatives at once. Cyan looks at what is happening with confusion, considering it madness and saying out loud that the red goblins are going to destroy Charlie's core. Sawyer suggests that his protege admit defeat, because there is nothing shameful about it. He fought with dignity, and the woman is confident that over time he will be able to pass this test. But the guy refuses. He has already made a decision that he will not back down from, intending to fight until his last representative. Besides, he is not lost yet. Sword appears out of nowhere and uses the level 3 storm slash technique, slicing through the space in front of him with his blades. The red goblins standing in a row begin to die one after another, disappearing in flashes of 4 blades. The remaining ones simultaneously raise their hands and with angry faces, release columns of hot flame from their palms. Explosions fill the space, and the simple commentator notes that even the hero has a hard time, and believes that Charlie is definitely facing the end now. A gray-haired man stands in the middle of the epicenter, looking ahead with a frown. The boy's class teacher gloats, believing that this will be an excellent lesson for his ward. He waits with bated breath for the hour when his divine sphere will be destroyed. But one of the students attracts his attention, looks the other way, and he is forced to moderate his ardor. Green creatures appear on the battlefield, and someone excitedly notes that this is the orc army. One of the orcs, the oldest looking of them all, raises his weapon into the air and calls on his kin to defend their new god. The red goblins look at the representatives of the other race with puzzlement. They clearly did not expect such a turn of events. And the orcs, without wasting time, rush into the attack with the intention of killing the enemies. The latter, due to the element of surprise, only have time to cover themselves with their hands as a block. Some people speculate that it's Chad's orcs, while others wonder where Charlie gets his talent from. At this rate, he'll be in the top 10 by the end of the year. The orcs stand proudly in a group with weapons at the ready, towering over their defeated enemies. Charlie praises them, clenching his fists happily. They tried hard. The deputy director and Cian are also happy with the result. They praise the guy and, unable to contain their emotions, say that he won. And only the man is not happy. Laramie, frowning with displeasure, utters the words of a curse. When the 3 students who pass the test gather together, the teachers compete to outshout each other, trying to lure Charlie to their place with better conditions. Salt looks at Cian, intending to go where the girl is, and she awaits the verdict of another classmate. But Charlie is currently interested in something else. He asks Xavier why his test was much more difficult than others. The woman replies that all the teachers together were involved in choosing the difficulty levels. Apparently, the majority of votes indicated that it was the most optimal for the student. The guy smiles, asking if he can see the list of voters and see their specific choice. Following the orientation, Charlie stands in front of the teachers who voted against the decision to make the test more difficult and asks what he can expect when he transfers to their class. One of the men, smiling, says that after such a wonderful result, he is ready to provide his potential ward with an army of 10,000 orcs, which will allow him to rise high. The second candidate says that he understands the importance of success and therefore can help Charlie learn special techniques that will allow him to unlock the potential of all types of locusts in the future. After the boy chooses Tom Voice, Cian and Salt also ask the teacher to become students in his class. The man beams, thinking that at this rate he could become teacher of the year, since 3 strong students have come to him at once. He holds out 3 cards to his surprise new charges, saying that they will be small gifts for them. Charlie gets a level 2 card. Hive, smiling, he reads the description, believing that it was literally made for him. If Charlie places the hive into his god sphere, the insects born in the future will immediately gain the effects of the Heart of Explosion and the Flame Lava Crystal. The guy bows gratefully to the man as a sign of appreciation, politely thanking him, and the man asks him not to rush, because it is better to show gratitude through good results. Sawyer spreads his arms wide, saying that since everything has been resolved so well, we can finish for today, but first reminds him of the important exams next week. Charlie stands in his world in front of the window with the status of the number of representatives and other life forms. The results are currently unsatisfactory. He thinks that if he had to take the exam now, the student would end up at the very bottom of the school's list. He needs to multiply the magma locust as quickly as possible and improve the other types. Charlie's attention is drawn to some red orc blacksmiths, 52 in number, and he goes to them himself, wanting to see everything with his own eyes. Noticing one of them, the guy reads the description. Red orc blacksmiths are the fruit of a bloody battle of ordinary orcs who evolved into the elite. The guy admires the fact that the orcs themselves raised their level. He would like to have such main representatives, so the guy could use growth acceleration on them, increasing their numbers. 4 days later, Charlie checks the common locust population to perform his favorite sacrifice, and he glows purple, frowning in concentration. Sacrifice of life takes the lives of thousands of insects, devouring them with its merciless flame. He stands in front of the system window and looks at it with admiring eyes. The options offered exceeded his expectations. The first option is a level 2 sacred artifact. The second is a hero template, and the third is a bit of divinity. The guy is surrounded by an aura of joy and happiness. His eyes are simply running wild because of these wonderful options. The choice will not be easy. That is why he approaches the choice carefully, trying to put everything in its place and not make a mistake, although everything offered seems beyond all praise. But still, having carefully weighed all the pros and cons, Charlie chooses the first option, believing that there is no need to be very greedy. He needs to start using the full potential of his main representatives. 3 days later, a stunned Charlie, overcome with emotion, points his index finger at himself, never thinking that his locusts could grow to such a size. Standing before a creature that is larger than even him, the boy names it Magma Locust Plus. Sheehan approaches Charlie from behind. She asks him again if he is thinking about becoming her slave, believing that only her family can help him. The guy looks at his interlocutor, slightly irritated. The girl does not give up trying to convince her interlocutor, saying that locusts cannot evolve forever, and orcs are not the main representatives. Charlie thanks Cian for the 1000th time, asking her to stop asking the same question. He's doing well. The girl will see confirmation of these words at the exam. She is also angry, considering her interlocutor stubborn, while Salt silently watches them from the side. But still, he can't resist making a sarcastic comment, wanting to one day make his rival disappear from his beloved girl's sight. Standing in front of the class, Tom talks about the importance of the upcoming exam. They need to give it their all, and the school will have a valuable reward for those who perform well. Looking at his students, the man asks everyone to familiarize themselves with the rules of the exam. Charlie reads the rules with a smile, noting the lines that if a student fails, he will be expelled from school, which is indeed an indication of the value of the potential rewards. After reviewing the list of awards, the guy becomes inspired, believing that he can move mountains for them. Tom looks at the class with an unreadable gaze as he announces the start of the exam. The first stage is about to begin, so you should prepare for the test. Charlie plunges into the blue abyss as the countdown starts. The huge gates swing open, revealing an impenetrable blue stream. Charlie takes the appropriate pose, placing defenders in the form of red orcs and locusts next to him, and gives the command to everyone to prepare for battle. Before them appear creatures that resemble a cross between a human, a dinosaur, and something with horns, emerging from the fog with their mouths open, revealing their sharp fangs. Charlie knows them. They are demonic golems. He thinks that for the first stage this is too much. Although they are considered normal, the strength is close to elite, but they still have a weakness, slowness. The guy directs 50,000 magma locusts with his hand, wanting to destroy the enemy with characteristic power. Thousands of small wings cut through the air. The battlefield is filled with angry cries of pain and rage from the demonic golems. The guy grins. The smell left behind by the explosions reminds him of barbecue. He wonders if they will be able to feed the locusts. The very next moment, the guy orders his red orc blacksmiths to drag the bodies of the fallen to him, and they obey the order without question. 15 minutes later, only bones remain from the demon golems' bodies. Charlie grins. Now he will know that this is possible, and jokes. The exam thus flowed into home delivery of food. There is a dialogue between the teachers observing the exam. About 20 students have already been kicked out of Tom's class, which is almost a third. The situation is worse for others. The difficulty is high. Sawyer says that the director is currently fighting with the demons of the abyss. Apparently he had his own reasons for setting such a difficulty level, so it is not for them, the demigods, to be judges. Watching his ward fight, Tom is pleased with his resourcefulness. He notes that the locusts are gone, and asks his colleagues if they have seen other similar creatures that can eat toxin-laden flesh without harm. One of the teachers is surprised. He has never heard of anything like this and wants to study this phenomenon. His colleagues standing nearby are also interested. And only Laramie is dissatisfied. He belittles Charlie's merit, saying that immunity to toxins does not make the locusts stronger and more powerful, attributing everything to luck. The class teacher defends his protege, saying that luck is also part of strength. The kind that Charlie brought out is very strong and useful. We shouldn't forget about it. The guy's locust has become comparable in potential to the elite. Although it was originally a normal type, this is visible even to the naked eye. Laramie continues to stick to his guns, believing that the elite locust can't exist, that it can't even handle the ordinary goblins, and his colleague counters, saying that he's thinking one-sidedly. The stubborn one says he's not going to argue, but there's a student in his class with goblins as representatives. He suggests they see who's higher in the ranking. The bet is accepted. But Tom thinks that everything is not so simple, and he offers his future opponent to voice the conditions. Laramie, in turn, offers to put 5 divinity points on the line. Tom agrees. The provocateur notes to himself that the man gave the student he was talking about more points than others because he was his nephew. It is unlikely that Tom could boast of such generosity. The teachers look at the system board. 430 students passed the qualifying round of the exam, and 300 of them decided to participate in the ranking round. Laramie once again shows his superiority by calling the 130 who refused cowards. His colleague rebukes him, saying that he shouldn't say that. The difficulty level was higher than usual. The third one says that it is even better this way. They will only have to teach the strongest ones who are able to overcome their fear. Meanwhile, the second stage of the exam begins. Skeletons emerge from the gates of the tests. Teachers are amazed, thinking it is too simple. Charlie smiles puzzledly. His locusts are hungry and their numbers are huge. The skeletons will be able to give the insects literally nothing, but there is nowhere to go. He orders his army, over 1 billion strong, to attack, and it rises up in a gigantic swarm, approaching the enemy in a coherent swarm. The skeletons open their bony mouths in a menacing manner, sensing trouble, but nothing can be changed. 2 hours later, Charlie sits down and yawns, saying that the meager meal will do for a snack. The second wave of battle are the skeleton warriors. Now it's the turn of the self-detonating locust, which, when colliding with the bone ones, causes their assembled parts to disintegrate with their characteristic sound. They literally die in lava, which, if it continues to accumulate, will not even allow the skeletons to get close to Charlie. In addition, this process can be accelerated. The guy orders his red orc blacksmiths to douse the monsters with molten metal from his great smelter. Obedient warriors immediately carry out the will of their master. The flames are raging right at the gate. Charlie is happy. Now the skeletons will die immediately after they emerge from the portal. He doesn't even have to do anything else. One of the observing teachers appreciates the boy's genius, and Tom, pleased with his student smiling, says that it's all about training, while Laramie, standing nearby, is, as usual, dissatisfied. He tells his opponent that his student is 1 step ahead of Tom's student and teases him by asking if he has relaxed too much. In the God Realm, the mentioned 13 Archbalist towers, 9 lightning towers, 12 first-tier fireball towers, it seems like he spent a fortune on all of them. Laramie gloats to himself. He is sure that no one else has invested so much in their student. So he believes that his nephew is simply obliged to take first place in the exam. But someone pulls the man out of his thoughts, calling him to look at the sphere of the student Cayenne. In her arsenal, there are not only those that surpass in quantity everything the previous student had, but also elite thunder sparrows, as well as normal wood giants. One of the men notes that the daughter of the Shirley family is strong. A neighbor echoes him. It is pointless to even compare with others. A third notes that even he does not have so many creatures in his arsenal. The first one considers the girl not just one of the top 3, but also the best, and Laramie is tormented with anger, mentally blaming Charlie for all the troubles in the world and promising to take revenge on him. After the 10th wave, only 18 students remain, including Charlie. Cyan is certainly also passing, and these two, along with the other 16, are asked to prepare themselves properly, for the next wave will be qualitatively different from all the previous ones. The gate opens and against a red background appears a tall, dark figure in a cloak with terrifying blades extending from it. For some, it only takes one stunned glance at the screen to understand that the hero stands before the remaining ones. This hero is a skeleton, a bone collector. His talents are bone manipulation and bone fusion. Walking past the bones scattered here and there, the hero directs his terrifying aura at them. Its dark eye sockets seem to stare piercingly at its prey as it closes the distance, looking forward. The collector raises his wooden staff and begins to connect the bones he likes. Raising his other hand, he says just one word: forward, and that is enough. The newly assembled skeletons attack their former enemies with greater fury than before. The new creator orders his main weapon to kill everyone, and it, exuding from its slightly open jaws and transparent insides, releases traces of magic. A huge bony foot steps on the smaller creature, unafraid of the explosion left behind by the latter. The teachers watch with bated breath. Less than 3 minutes have passed and 8 participants have already dropped out. It's too difficult for them. Laramie is all about his own thing, complaining that the bone giant in Charlie's sphere is too small. Something is clearly wrong here. The skeleton, clinging to the rock, trembles. Tom thinks it's obvious, all because most of the skeletal warriors drowned in magma, so the bone collector didn't have enough material. The air is cut by ringing, light-bearing blades. The sword uses the technique, iron sword style. Charlie yawns. He has successfully survived the 11th wave. Laramie is torn between anger and indignation, not believing that the guy managed to cope. He believes that he deceived everyone, somehow knowing in advance about the monsters that were supposed to be on the test. Tom stands up for his student, asking his colleague for evidence, and he loudly declares that the man sided with Charlie and threatens to report him to the appropriate authorities. He says that even without evidence, everything is clear, because everyone saw what Charlie did to the skeleton warriors. No one in their right mind would start cleaning up the bodies, unless, of course, they knew about the collector. Tom asks his colleague to stop talking nonsense, but he doesn't even think of stopping, saying that what he said is the absolute truth, and believing that the school should sort everything out by handing out punishment. Xavier also enters the conversation, saying that this is impossible. The director himself was dealing with the monsters. If anyone thinks otherwise, he is accusing the director himself, and this is a false accusation. These words sober Laramie up a bit. He gets embarrassed, starting to mumble that he hadn't thought about anything like that, and apparently the guy really is lucky, but he still considers what happened unfair. The woman says that the man himself should understand what nonsense he just said, because everyone arranges their sphere the way they want. That is, the results are the merit of the owner of the place. Taking advantage of the moment, Xavier asks if Laramie thinks it is fair for him to sponsor his nephew or for Shirley Keehan's family to do so. Tom hears this and moves closer to his opponent, asking if this is the reason he proposed the bet. He didn't know that the student in question was Laramie's nephew, but he doesn't refuse the bet. In the sphere of the gods of Laramie Michael, a huge skeleton stands, looking back with its red eyes at the owner of this place, who veiledly admits his defeat. Behind him lie the fallen bodies of his representatives, the goblins. And finally, the guy openly admits his defeat. Tom notes that Michael failed by giving up and thus he won the bet. Hoping that his colleague will not back down in front of witnesses, the man asks where his promised glasses are. Passing the corresponding card to his opponent, Laramie asks Tom not to spend the points yet, because he will soon get them back. An hour and the 13th wave later, there are 3 participants left, including Charlie and Keehan. Now it only remains to understand which of them will take what place. The 14th wave forces Faust Horn, the 3rd participant in the top, to admit defeat. After 2 more waves, Cyan surrenders. The vice principal is jubilant. Charlie took first place, but he doesn't give up even on the 20th wave, sending his magma locust forward. The space is illuminated by numerous nuclear mushrooms and splashes of magma. The skeleton, shrouded in a dark aura, raises its hand forward and howls. The sword bursts forth, proclaiming death to the invaders, and after only 15 minutes, silence reigns once more in Charlie's sphere. The system reports the successful completion of the wave and warns that the next one will be even more difficult. But the guy, frowning, smiles, although he thought that the completed one would be the last. The gate opens before him, illuminating the space blue and releasing lightning to match. Seeing the one who appears before him, the guy is amazed at the greatness of his opponent. At the gate stands a creature that looks incredibly human. One of the teachers exclaims. He notices the skeleton queen in Charlie's opponent. The others look at the screen in amazement as well. The guy says that he didn't expect to see a creature like Lord and suggests that he doesn't have enough strength to fight this fury. He raises his hand, admitting defeat. The skeleton mistress rises from her pedestal in indignation. She doesn't want to let go of her victim so easily and raises her hands up, spewing lightning. Her face contorts into a grimace and a growl escapes her toothy maw as she charges forward. A bone covered in purple flies into the air. Something flashes past Charlie, causing him to look amazed. An explosion flares up behind the young man, and he turns around, not understanding what is happening here. The gates close with a powerful and distinctive sound. Charlie finds himself in a familiar swirl of blue and blue hues. Looking at the system window with his own result, the guy is surprised, realizing that he took first place. The system chart shows the results of the classes and their homeroom teachers. Laramie is angry that he only took 8th place while Tom's students were in first place. Students look at their results with a wide range of emotions, some of them crying and feeling indignant at the prospect of expulsion. And a joyful Charlie is congratulated on first place, resting on his laurels. After 1 hour, rewards will appear on the board, including Iron Ore card, Sphere Land card, Level 1 Sacred Artifact Exchange card, and more. The students are amazed at their number, realizing that they all now belong to only one contender, Charlie. The lucky owner is thinking about how to use all these cards wisely, but his problem is quickly solved. Teacher Tom offers his help to his ward, and the latter, smiling contentedly, is glad that he can be relied on. The cards received as rewards help Charlie to arrange the terrain of his god sphere favorably. The guy looks thoughtfully at the offered weapon and understands that the card can only be exchanged for one. It is not profitable at the moment. It is better to look for something like hammers for orc blacksmiths. And he finds it among the received awards. Warhammer, Purgatory, only the minimum criterion for use is a heroic type of creature with the fire attribute. The guy thinks that he won't be able to use this weapon now. He needs to wait until the Red Orcs reach the rank of hero. Tom says that the main exam is a test after which only the strongest survive. He asks the top 3 participants to come to the board. Classmates look back at Charlie. The last ones to come to the board are Cian and Faust. The teacher says that since Charlie has become the strongest among the 3, he will receive 100 class points and will also be able to choose any of the treasures given to the class. After these words, the boy becomes interested in what treasures the teacher mentioned, and soon he is given the opportunity to see them with his own eyes. Looking at the entire list, Charlie chooses the life-giving spring, which can produce water that better nourishes creatures and has a beneficial effect on the environment of the God Realm. Tom looks thoughtfully at his protege, believing that he has enormous potential, because he did not chase after momentary power, but decided to start with developing his strengths. Charlie takes his seat and hears the voice of one of his classmates from the side, who congratulates him, believing that the guy has risen well. A classmate approaches Charlie and asks him to sell him a divinity point, offering 105 million divine power points for it right now. Charlie looks at his interlocutor with distrust, thinking that something is clearly wrong here. Because he added 5 million on top of the usual cost, he directly asks why he needs it. The interlocutor jokes, pressing the lever of an instant and such an impressive sum, adding that it will be enough to change the representative and change fate. But Charlie resolutely refuses. The guy admits that his grandfather needs divinity. He lacks only one thing to become a true god, and Charlie wins, receiving not only millions, but also the debtor to boot. He thinks about it. The offer is really tempting, because thanks to it, it is possible to increase the number of locusts tenfold and acquire a debtor. The guy is about to agree to the offer, but a notification sound comes from his pocket. Charlie receives a message from Cian. The girl offers to buy 1 point of divinity from him for 150 million. The guy is surprised by such a generous offer, wondering how much money Shirley's family has. Meanwhile, Cian sends another message, asking if Charlie really thought that 1 divinity point was only worth 100 million. The girl explains in detail and clearly how much divinity can cost, and why Charlie's divinity cannot cost less than 145 million. The guy is surprised by her knowledge. He also understands that his classmate tried to deceive him and sends him far away. He is perplexed by the sudden change in the mood of the potential merchant. As he leaves, the guy tells Charlie not to get cocky just because he won first place on the exam, and describes him in less than flattering terms. Charlie feels rich when he gets 150 million divine power points into his account. He surveys his domain and concludes that the temple should be built in the Red Orc settlement. Charlie decides to install the life-giving spring in the desert so that over time this land will also become fertile. The hammer falls before the orcs, and the gray-haired elder, on behalf of his race, gives his esteemed god his heartfelt thanks, and he asks his subordinates to raise their heads. He did not come empty-handed, but brought the divine artifact, the warhammer, the purgatory, and what was currently on his hand, which resembled a red pineapple in shape. He bestows this elite seed, which is capable of raising potential, and hopes that someday his pupils will be able to become heroes and lift the gifted hammer. The orc who accepts the gift cries with happiness. The owner of the sphere flies away, and the orcs unanimously and wholeheartedly wish him a long life. The guy thoughtfully looks at the purple ball in his hand, called the Poison Mist Pearl. He took it on the advice of Teacher Tom, but to be honest, he still does not understand for what purposes. Almost immediately, the one he had just remembered makes himself known in a different way. A characteristic system window appears in the air. The boy politely greets his class teacher and asks what he wanted to talk to him about. The man tells about his dispute with Charlie's former class teacher. He believes that it would be fair to share part of the winnings with his ward. He offers a map, but its value is not hard to understand. So he is going to tell about an egg created by the Insect King, who was a demon, and the egg can eventually turn locusts into them. Tom says from the very beginning that you should prioritize your representatives, and the egg will help you do this and develop their potential. Charlie thinks that Laramie and the others thought he was weak because of his respective representatives. But Tom is not like that. He seriously helps his ward to use the locusts as much as possible. With his help, the insects will be able to become low-level demons over time, which will help them compare with many ordinary creatures of other races. The teacher gives one to choose from. Casting aside his doubts, Charlie chooses the second option, the egg, with a smile, because the prospect is obvious. The man had no doubts about his student. He suggests that the artifact synchronizes very well with the pearl, which the guy was worried about a little earlier. He thanks the teacher with all his heart. Taking advantage of the moment, the guy asks about meat. He needs to buy it in large quantities at a low price. The quality is indifferent. The interlocutor thinks and says that feeding locusts meat is not worth it. It is too expensive and of little use. The director recently took part in a battle after which many corpses remained. Tom will help. Pleased, Charlie thanks his class teacher again before he hangs up. Walking through the forest, Charlie thinks, the effect of gluttony turned out to be very unexpected. Now it is not easy to feed the locusts. It is necessary to find an alternative to the powers of the core as soon as possible. By placing the egg at the age tree, the boy believes that this way the process of releasing demonic energy will go faster. Perhaps it will even satisfy the locust's hunger a little. 2 days later, noticing the egg in a different place, the guy realizes with a smile that it looks like one locust has managed to eat its fill of demonic energy. He can't wait to see the result. The guy wonders how many days they develop, and at that moment a crack appears in the cocoon. Charlie's eyes widen in surprise as if a chick were hatching. What appears before his eyes is a normal type sky demon beetle. The newly minted one's talent is toughness. His faith level is fanatic, and his faith power is 1 unit per day. It's hard to believe that this type is normal, because it is stronger than locusts. It's a pity that the status window does not say anything about reproduction. Apparently, individuals appear strictly after absorbing the energy of the egg. Charlie is surprised to see that the demon bug has already doubled in size. Apparently gluttony works on this class as well. At this rate, evolution into elite shouldn't take long. He decides it's time to use the poison mist pearl and throws a purple sphere into the air. The boy's surprise knows no bounds when he realizes that the former heavenly demon bug has just become the elite poisonous demon bug, Ox. The man looks around the area in front of him in bewilderment, not understanding how this happened. The space in front of him is strewn with bare bones, and a demonic black haze swirls everywhere. He doesn't know what to do with these piles of demon corpses now. Sealing them inside the car doesn't give many guarantees. Sooner or later, the demonic power will break out. Teacher Tom calls the principal and asks what the matter is. The teacher greets the authorities a little embarrassedly and voices Charlie's desire to buy the corpses of the defeated demons. The principal himself is puzzled as to why the schoolboy needs the dead. Tom is immediately found, honestly answering that the representatives of the ward are locusts that feed on corpses, and even demonic ones will not be able to harm them. The interlocutor grins, asking if this is the same genius who recently defeated the demigod. He didn't think that locusts could be so useful and regrets that they won't survive in the conditions of the abyss. Otherwise, it would be possible to let the challengers in right here. The director hands the teacher a map, saying that there are 1,000,000 corpses inside, and there is no fee. The next day, Tom calls his boss again, awkwardly informing him that they are out of bodies and relaying Charlie's request for the director to be his body sponsor, which leaves him stunned. The class teacher agrees with the boss, saying that he also told the student about his impudence, but the man stops him, thinking. The director agrees to provide a constant supply of corpses to the ward if he is willing to exchange them for 10,000 divinity points in proportion to 100 corpses. 5 minutes later, the teacher calls back, saying that Charlie agrees, but he wants to start with 1,000,000 divine power points. A few days later, dozens of winged demon beetles are circling around the boy. The time has come. Building a sacrificial fire that reaches to the sky, he offers to God the souls of 1,000,000 winged insects. The sacrifice brings variants of 5 elite giant warriors, a tier 3 skill crystal, poisonous explosion, and a disintegration mechanism that can disintegrate matter and extract energy. With a smile on his face, the guy thinks that for the sacrifice of 12 billion elite beings, this is a very good result. Even the first option does not seem so bad. But the young man does not allow himself to make an impulsive decision. The other options also require study, and poisonous explosion is ideally combined with demon beetles and poisonous mist. But unfortunately, his core can't accommodate this crystal now, so the option is useless. Charlie readily chooses the remaining option, the decay mechanism. If he understood correctly, he would expand the matter and give out energy crystals at the end. This would be a good way to earn money, considering the value of the above. Charlie thinks the mechanism is huge, and the first thing he does is to lay out the iron ore. After 5 hours, the guy receives 3 iron crystals. He is surprised, but remembers that this item is used as food by some races, and each one costs about 5 points of divine power, which is, of course, unexpected, but also profitable. A puzzled look appears on the guy's face. The red orcs are asking for help. They were attacked by some undead, 3 were wounded, and the leader, armed with the gifted hammer, is trying to hold off the enemy. The guy understands that the temple begins to transmit to him the prayers of his creatures, but he is perplexed as to how the undead were able to get into his sphere of gods. A devilish flame of determination flares up in the gaze of God. He sees a skeleton approaching a red orc with a hammer. The blacksmith attacks, but the undead dodges, and Charlie doesn't understand why the intruder has the aura of the monster from the exam. The skeleton stops the warrior's attack with just 1 bony hand. Charlie realizes that he is strong and is going to gather information about the enemy. The attempt at identification fails. The creature is not a follower of the owner of this place, so he cannot get information about it. The guy is indignant and puzzled. Then the young man sees no better solution than to call upon his faithful sword, who appears immediately after the words of the summoning are finished, armed with his blades. Appearing in front of the skeleton, the man smashes all of its bones. But those same ones, falling to the ground with a consonant crunch, begin to tremble, enveloped in a purple aura. The reddish fire of empty eye sockets does not go out for a moment. He rises seconds later, rising to his full height, extra bones swirling around him, rattling menacingly. Charlie comes to the rescue himself, ordering the enemy to obey him and believe in him, arguing that only in that case the monster will be able to be reborn. The skeleton turns around. But the monster does this only to strike. Fortunately, the god of this world came only in the form of his illusion. He calls the skeleton naive. As long as the core of his divine realm exists, it will not be possible to injure the owner of the place. Charlie orders his men to pick apart the skeleton until he gives in, and 2 giants loom over the undead. 3 days later, the skeletons fall to their knees, expressing their desire to submit to the deity. The guy approaches one of them and, praising, strokes his bare skull. Hoping to get information now, he succeeds. The type of undead is a weakened and unfinished sealed lord. A voice comes from the classroom, asking the students if they are ready for the exam. The voice belongs to Tom, Leaning on the table, he says that the upcoming exam will greatly increase the gap between classmates, and the result will determine which academy you can enter. Charlie remembers his grandfather's request before he died. Apparently, the academy in question is one of the best educational institutions in the world. The test will take place in the dimension of the demon abyss. Details will be received after the transfer. An hour is allotted for preparation, which the teacher recommends to spend usefully. The students discuss the abyss. It is dangerous to be there, because creatures can become infected and turn into demons, while Salt rejoices, believing that the right time has come for him. But he is surprised when he sees that an unknown number is calling him. The guy leaves the classroom. The caller is Laramie. He politely greets his former protege, and he asks why the teacher is calling. The man wants the schoolboy to help him get rid of one person, and the guy leaning against the wall says that if we are talking about Charlie, then there is no need to continue. He has exactly the same thoughts on his mind. Laramie grins, noting that it was not for nothing that he considered Salt his best student, and promises that if he succeeds, he will receive a good reward. And for now, he offers a gift that can help on the exam. The schoolboy is amazed to see the card of the demon dragon in front of him, which is an elite type, not inferior in strength to the heroic ones. In the S-793,826 dimension of the demon abyss, the exam begins. Charlie stands in front of the board with the conditions for passing the exam and carefully studies them. It is necessary to choose in which incarnation of his beings the participant wants to appear in the dimension. The guy looks at the options available to him. There is nothing to think about here, because the undead are the only type of creature that will not be affected by the destructive effects of the demonic aura. The guy immediately begins to be enveloped in dark, translucent energy tentacles, enveloping him in a dense cocoon. And the next moment, looking at his body, he realizes that he has turned into an undead. He believes that the demon abyss is a true paradise for the undead and demons. Raising his hand in a commanding gesture, the boy summons 100 locusts. A dark aura immediately envelops the common locust, killing it. Everything is exactly as he thought. She simply won't survive here. But the 3 demonic babies feel quite comfortable in the alien dimension. Charlie tells them that he's counting on them. He notices demon fruits growing on one of the slopes. The schoolboy points at them with his finger and asks his charges to collect them for him, and they immediately rush to fulfill the owner's request. But Charlie's attention is drawn to a strange sound, and he turns towards it. Nearby, several zombie-like creatures emerge, shrouded in demonic energy, and advance forward with an ominous roar. They are aggressive, and Charlie is happy about it. He was just about to test the power of the skeleton lord. 10 minutes later, a mountain of corpses rises behind the schoolboy, emitting a demonic stench. They turned out to be weak by his standards. Meanwhile, the demon babies have collected a lot of the declared fruits, but unfortunately, the system offered very little for them. Charlie decides to take quantity, telling the bugs to focus on collecting. A day later, there is not a single tree with demon fruits left in the area. Charlie has collected them all and smiles slyly, because now without his help, no one will complete one of the tasks. He enters the class chat and offers his services to complete the 49th task. He has a plan. Those who want to immediately appear, but along with them there are also those who are negatively disposed, as well as warnings, and Charlie is happy. It turns out that he has a universal currency for this dimension. On the other side of the screen, another demonic entity is rejoicing. The student who took on its appearance didn't even have to work hard to figure out his opponent. He promises to finish off Charlie. Salt stands proudly surrounded by his demonic wolves. A few hours later, Charlie realizes that his representatives are too weak, but if he doesn't start taking on challenging tasks, he'll fall to the bottom of the list. He hears the sound of rattling bones behind him and turns around. Skeletons approach from behind, led by the leader. They look ahead in amazement, stopping in front of a tree. A conversation begins between the undead that only they can understand. Charlie doesn't know if he can subdue the local undead with the skeleton lord, but he's going to try. The skeletons look at him with dismay. One of them looks at the approaching one more piercingly than the others, his red eyes flashing. The undead line up looking at Charlie, who asks if they recognize him. And they will know, because the very next moment they fall prostrate before their lord, who, taking advantage of the moment, reads the information. The schoolboy is amazed, not believing that the idea worked. He didn't even have time to say anything, and he already has a small squad of devout skeleton warriors. The undead kneel in orderly ranks as their new leader commands them to stand and lead him to their camp. An hour later, more undead are kneeling before Charlie, including a skeleton knight who is an elite type sitting on top of a demonic wolf. Charlie is stunned. He never expected such a result. But at the same time, he is happy that he now has a real army of the undead. The skeleton knight tells his story. He was once a member of the first skeleton legion, but after the battle with the demonic golems, his squad had to separate from the main army. He had no choice but to set up camp here. He sent the skeletons to search for demon fruits, as they are able to strengthen their bodies, and Charlie thinks about this possibility. When looking at the rating the next day, the student understands that there is no point in postponing anymore. Compared to the initial result, he has dropped by about 100 steps. Charlie presents the knight with the fruits, telling him to handle the rest himself, like distributing them among the squad members, and he is clearly flattered, kneeling before his lord with his hand on his heart. 10 minutes later, the skeleton's power can literally be felt in the air and in their fiery gazes. Their target is the demon golem's lair, and they head into battle. The hooded squad sets out on their journey, walking in a neat row past picturesque landscapes. Charlie ponders that there are 8 to 10,000 creatures in the demon camp, and only 1,000 skeletons. A head-on collision is unlikely to be successful, so he will have to take the opponents by cunning. He offers one of the skeletons to lure out about a dozen demons, and he obediently fulfills his fate. The plan succeeds, and enraged demons run out to meet the undead. But soon their facial expressions change to surprise. Skeletons come out to meet the demons, taking them by surprise. Taking advantage of the moment of surprise, the undead rush to attack. Charlie uses all his advantages, finding it convenient to turn demon golems into skeleton warriors after their death, which is why the schoolboy loves the undead. An hour later, Charlie's army already consists of 7,000 warriors. According to his calculations, there are about 3,000 creatures left in the lair, so it is time for a large-scale battle. A schoolboy sends his army into battle. 3 hours later, one of the subordinates presents his lord with a reward. He praises the army, noting that the task was completed. He receives 60 points for it. The guy quickly rises up the rankings, and the demonic wolf looks ahead with a sparkling red gaze. Salt curses, wondering where his opponent is, his wolf demons languishing in inaction. Looking at the changes in the student list, he notes that his classmate has scored 60 points and guesses that he cleared the demon golem lair. He has exceeded expectations. Someone is approaching Charlie's small squad of skeleton warriors. It's Salt, who is puzzled by the idea that his rival acquired the skeletons in secret, but believes that this clever move will not help Charlie get a higher place in the exam. Without delay, the boy orders his hellhounds to attack, and they rush to carry out their plan with a menacing roar. Charlie turns around in surprise at the rapidly approaching dogs, but his skeleton warriors rush forward even faster, eager and selflessly rushing to protect their master. The dogs attack, but the undead stand stoically, ready to take the full brunt of the attack, not allowing their lord to be harmed, enveloped in purple energy. Salt is amazed. This is the second day in the abyss, and the opponent already has such a large army. It is scary to imagine what will happen after even more time has passed, so he needs to kill him now. A moment later, a huge golden dragon with its mouth wide open appears before a horde of skeletons. One of the dogs sinks its teeth into the night, biting him in half and knocking a scream out of his bony mouth. Charlie asks Salt, who towers over him in the form of a dragon, why he attacked him and his creatures, since there was never any enmity between them. Words escape from the huge mouth, allowing Charlie to believe that Salt simply doesn't like him, and the dragon rushes to attack. The lord is thrown back by a moving glowing blade, the blow landing on the stomach area. From all the mouths of the skeletons, only one synchronized word comes out. Lord, they are terrified. And the dragon, turning away from them, flies away. Considering it unworthy of him to waste time on such weak creatures, they follow him with the gaze of their dark, empty eye sockets. An inhuman cry of rage erupts from their depths. Charlie, having pulled himself together, tries to finally come to his senses. He is glad that Lord has such a talent as resurrection. He tells his subjects not to stand there like a pillar. They need to gather all the remaining troops and get out of here. Charlie is indignant, being firmly convinced that Salt has dug his own grave with such behavior. The next meeting will be proof of this. And the one in question is thoughtfully studying the list of the dismissed, wondering why the classmate he personally overthrew is still not on it. Then the schoolboy checks another list, and his dragon eye widens in amazement. Confused as to why Charlie is still alive, Salt takes to the air, determined to destroy his classmate, even if it takes all his time. He returns to Charlie's old campsite with his hellhounds, but finds no one there. Then he orders his charges to immediately begin searching, and not to miss a single representative of the undead. They obediently rush in pursuit. Charlie holds up the bone crystal, saying that he will give it to his army, because due to the surprise attack he only has 5,000 skeletons left. They need to be strengthened urgently. The warriors bow their heads in submission, respectfully accepting the gift of their master. Charlie notices that his place in the ranking leaves much to be desired, and understands that with such results he will never be able to enter the Imperial Academy. He finds a task with his eyes, judging by the description of which, if successfully completed, he will be able to significantly expand the army of his undead, and it is also highly valued, which is also good. Charlie stands at the head of his army with an extremely satisfied look. He gives the order to move out. Their goal is the lair of the fallen demons. 2 months later, a meeting is held in the relevant office at the boys' school. The class teachers are discussing the results of their best students. One of the teachers asks Tom what is going on with his student who took first place in the last exam. Instead of Tom, Laramie responds, again beginning to humiliate Charlie, underestimating his results, and Tom skillfully reminds, defending not only Charlie but all the students, that such words are unacceptable. Laramie is impenetrable, asking him what he did wrong, believing that the awards given to others instead of Charlie could have been put to better use, while privately gloating over the guy's potential death. Tom offers to bet his former opponent again, believing that Charlie will take first place again. Laramie asks about the bets and receives in response 10 divinity points. He says that he doesn't have that amount now, but he can bet something equivalent. The man puts his divine healing level 3 on the line, and Tom warns that the man has taken on a high-scoring task that he can complete soon. The man believes that a task with such high numbers can ensure that the student who completes it will be admitted to a prestigious academy, and the place in the ranking will then recede into the background. There is a black aura swirling around the fallen demon's den. Originally, there were about 1 million demons here, but now there are only about 100,000 left. Charlie stands on top of the cliff, thinking that his strategy has worked. He now has about 900,000 skeleton warriors under his command. The time has come. He orders his subordinates to rush into the attack, and they immediately carry out the order, breaking away from their place. The knight mercilessly attacks one of the demons, who, trying to avoid the attack of the ghostly blade, moves back. The handful of remaining demons recoil in horror at the sight of him, and he suggests that they simply surrender to the mercy of their lord. 20 minutes later, Charlie takes full control of the settlement, planting his flag and giving his subjects a rousing speech. They have won. The skeletons channel magical energies into the remaining handful of demons lying before them. One of them begins to be entangled in magic. This skeleton grows long hair, and when opening its status window, Charlie sees new information. This individual is now an elite resurrection skeleton. The schoolboy is amazed. This resurrectionist looks even stronger than his knight. The resurrectionist waves his hand, applying magical energy to the movement, and scattered bones, enveloped in it, rise into the air. The next moment, the parts come together into a single whole, and a complete skeleton appears before the eye. Charlie, standing on a hill in front of his subjects, rejoices that all the warriors of his army are back in action. A knight approaches him from behind, and, kneeling and addressing his master with respect, presents him with the trophy. Charlie picks up the level 1 sacred artifact, the flame staff, and begins to carefully study its description. In addition to it, there is also a quarter of the hero template fragment and the source of the fallen. He understands that the source of the fallen is a real treasure for this dimension, which means that later he will be able to summon locusts. And now with such an army, the guy is not afraid of Salt. Charlie looks at the awards and checks his place in the ranking, and also remembers that there was another task on the list to clear the lair of local demons. He needs to hurry. Standing behind his troops, the schoolboy orders his army to move forward, and it moves forward with all readiness. 3 days later, Charlie's results are discussed by the teachers, including Tom, who speaks for the others. The fact that the student was able to rise from the last places to 4th is amazing. Laramie crosses his arms adamantly, saying that no one cares about 4th place when 1st place exists. The academies, seeing such results, begin to send Charlie invitations to join their ranks. Laramie becomes nervous, emotionally asking why Sawyer reported invitations from the academies concerning only one student, and she replies that there have been no others yet. The man says he doesn't believe the academy sent an invitation to the fourth-placed person while ignoring those above them, and the woman reminds him of the rules for sending an invitation. Soon, Cian also fulfills the necessary conditions, and one of the academies sends her an invitation. But Laramie doesn't really care about this. He's only interested in making sure Charlie doesn't become the first. The man contacts Salt, saying that there are only 3 tasks left that he must complete before Charlie at any cost. He replies that he understood, believing that he will be able to complete the task 90 points ahead of his opponent. Charlie stands in front of a board with uncompleted tasks, the minimum cost for which is at least 9/10 of points. He is 130 points short of first place, which means that in order to win the exam, he needs to complete at least 2 more tasks, but they look difficult. On the other hand, Charlie can hardly be called a weakling now because he has a huge army behind him, and first the guy decides to deal with the demon minotaurs. Salt is told to try harder if he doesn't want to let his opponent win. The minotaur demon raises his weapon over his enemies, looking at them menacingly with eyes blazing with madness. But an hour later, the situation has changed little, despite the fact that the demon is confronted by 2 opponents who have united for a time. Salt believes that they are on the verge of death and suggests that his comrade leave while they are safe. He agrees, because if the 2 of them could not kill the minotaur, Charlie certainly cannot do it alone. But the eyes of the demonic lion open wide in horror, as does its wide-open fanged mouth. He is stunned with amazement when he sees countless hordes of skeleton warriors in front of him. It's hard to imagine where the undead came from. The schoolboy asks his temporary ally about the next plan. The giant minotaur, meanwhile, swings his equally impressive weapon at the skeletons, kicking up dust and bones from the previous attack. Leo suggests that the dragon not be afraid, but break through. These are just ordinary dice. Standing on the rise behind his rivals, Charlie says that he won't let them go so easily now, that running is pointless, and with an omniscient finger he sends the bone collector forward. The knight also offers his services as protection and support to the said one. It towers behind the bone collector so that he can go about his business unhindered. The knight, meanwhile, also acts as an obstacle remover, his furious red eyes blazing. The bone collector begins to cast his spell, his gaze glowing a demonic green. At that very moment, shrouded in a shade to match, a new undead rises from the fallen body, adding its candidacy to the ranks of Charlie's warriors. The lion and the dragon look at each other in fear, not expecting that the skeletons would be able to turn their dead creatures into their warriors. Towering over those wishing to save their lives by running, the giant knight orders them to freeze in place. They, fearing for their own skins, obediently stop, asking what the giant intends to do with them. Charlie appears on the knight's shoulder, calmly greeting his dear classmates. The dragon is shocked, not expecting to see his sworn enemy as the ruler of this undead, and asks how he managed to get skeletons into his leadership, since his main representative is a locust. He doesn't even let his classmate finish speaking, mercifully saying that he won't bully him out of politeness and will quickly relieve him of unnecessary suffering. Salt doesn't dare to utter an extra word, since he understands perfectly well the situation he's found himself in, but his temporary comrade has slipped away somewhere in the confusion. A huge foot is reflected in the dragon's eye sockets as he screams furiously, asking his opponent to stop. Another classmate watches the terrible spectacle from the side in horror. He speaks puzzled, sweating. There were never any disagreements between him and Charlie. He can apologize to his classmate, but his death will not bring him any benefit. Charlie actually stops for a moment, thinking and agreeing, but also notices that he can no longer just let Lev go. With tears in his eyes and a pitiful roar, he offers to give his classmate all the treasures he has accumulated in this dimension in exchange for his life. Charlie smiles slyly, saying that they have a deal, and tells his former rival to leave. The lion immediately runs away, afraid that his opponent might change his mind, periodically looking back at the undead. 5 hours later, events take a turn in Charlie's favor. The remaining minotaurs fall to their knees before the victor, begging for mercy and ready to surrender and submit. The schoolboy looks contentedly at the system window, notifying him of his successful completion of the task and receipt of the specified reward. He also checks his total points and remaining tasks, glad that no one has yet managed to complete the remaining task for 90 points. But at that very moment, fate hits him on the head with a blow. The task is completed. Charlie wonders who could have done this. The answer comes almost immediately. It is Cian, who, thanks to her performance, managed to rise to second place. But the guy is not surprised. He understands that now first place is only for him in one case. The test participant will have to kill the dark frog, the demigod. Charlie thinks about this seriously. The complexity of the task is beyond the capabilities of an ordinary student, but if he wants to attract the attention of the Imperial Academy, he must complete it. He commands his army to move forward, their goal now being the lair of the dark frog. The rest of the students had already left the Abyss Dimension, leaving only Tom's wards there. The latter looks at his students' scores and wonders what they are doing there. Laramie interferes where she shouldn't, saying that they are fooling around. The last task is very difficult, which means that no one will dare to challenge the demigod. No one has yet completed this task. Tom approaches his opponent from behind and says that this is exactly what his students did. They went to the Toad's lair right now, and very soon everyone will find out what will come of it. Cian commands his representatives to rush into attack, and the sparrows readily fulfill their mistress's will. They illuminate the space with their lightning, trying to destroy as many frog-shaped opponents as possible. They die from fire and lightning with a furious and hopeless cry, throwing up their paws. But one of the individuals raises its limbs upward, folding them into a simple groove, and the space around it is illuminated by a flash of a spell. She considers Cian reckless and surrounds the space with a protective barrier. The Toad threatens to kill the girl and all her followers, for it is improper to attack the tribe of the demigod. Cian's eyes widen. There's no need to go to a fortune teller. Everything is clear without it. Things are bad. The space is illuminated by a pink-violet flash, dangerously approaching the schoolgirl representative. The bird is seriously injured and its feathers turn red with blood. But Cian is not discouraged. She uses the divine tree of purification, and the representative is swirled in a healing golden glow. She heals, recharged, and ready to fight again. The space around is illuminated by lightning when their strike occurs. The ball lightning heads straight towards the protective barrier created by Frog. Seeing that the method is effective, Cian orders all the thunder sparrows to use this technique, and the little birds obey God. The sphere, enveloped by multiple blows, stands firm, but it is already clearly visible that it is cracking at the seams. The girl puts in a little more effort, and it is not in vain. The protective sphere is destroyed with a crash, flying apart into small fragments. The tactic worked. The demigod sends his demonic mountain-eating toad to attack. The eyes of Kian, whose form she had taken, widened in surprise. Blood flows from the mouth of the giant toad, and its red-rimmed eyes stare angrily ahead. She tracks down the remaining bird in front of her, which is desperately flapping its wings, trying to avoid a collision. But such a small distance is no obstacle for this toad, for it sticks out its long tongue from its gigantic mouth, wriggling deftly towards the little bird. Tyan can do nothing, allowing his opponent to wrap around his small body. With a nasty swallowing sound, she returns her limb to her mouth, contentedly swallowing her prey. The cyan inside the creature emits lightning, but the toad is too big. The lightning does not cause much harm to it. If this continues, it will be the end of it. The ringing sound is heard. Charlie is calling the girl. She looks at the system window with displeasure. Considering the time inappropriate, they are actually trying to digest her. But still, the bird girl accepts the call with her wing hand. Charlie compliments the girl's appearance and asks where she is. She irritably replies that it shouldn't bother him. The schoolboy suggests that Kian join forces for a while, believing that otherwise there really will be nothing left of her and her sparrows. The girl answers in her usual manner, wanting to ask why she should agree at all, but she fails to finish the sentence. What is happening makes the little bird come to its senses, and she accepts her classmate's offer, asking only for the body of the demigod for their joint work. He agrees, asking Kian to order her charges to pick him up and his elite creatures. It just so happens that he is now so far away that he will not be able to reach the battlefield in time. The girl gives the representatives the corresponding order. A puzzled Charlie is amazed at the speed of the birds. As soon as he sees them, he waves his hand at them, drawing attention to himself. The bird allows the guy to sit on its back, and now they are flying through the sky. Charlie asks the Cyan representatives not to forget about his army as well, and moments later, they too are flying on the backs of the birds. As they approach Toad's lair, the storm sparrows begin to charge with static. Having absorbed Cyan, the frog viciously opens its fanged mouth and jumps, wanting to grab its next victim. Flying up to the battle site, Charlie is puzzled. The skeleton warriors are too weak individually, crumbling at every touch of these frogs. But he is glad that the bones do not disappear anywhere. Flying even closer, the schoolboy says that it is time for the bone collector to appear. He immediately finds himself on a huge pile of bones, his bloody eyes sparkling. He begins to chant, clasping his bony hands together in glowing green. Piles of bones rise into the air at the command of their powerful caster, shimmering in color. As a result, a huge skeleton knight rises from the ashes nearby, ready to follow the instructions of his lord god. The frogs sit in a circle in the lotus position, pointing their front paws and eyes upward. A purple circle appears around them. They perform the spell, Swamp Path, Land of Frogs. The bone knight steps forward, his gigantic movement shaking the air and causing anything on the ground to fly. Charlie happily orders the skeleton resurrectionist and minotaur shaman to attack. They obediently rush forward with their improvised means at the ready. Their attacks have a powerful effect on the frog hordes. The summoner orders new soldiers to rise up, who will soon join Charlie's already large army. Skeletons obediently rise from the bodies of slain frogs, enveloped in magical light and demonic glow. But a new obstacle arises before them in the form of a new batch of fighting amphibians, bearing their terrible, drooling mouths with the sharpest fangs. But the storm sparrows come to the aid of the undead, or rather fly in, releasing bright bolts of lightning from their bodies. With battle cries, they unleash powerful attacks on the frog bodies, frying them in an instant. The demigod stands on his hind legs, admitting that he underestimated the humans and deciding to become a little more serious. An aura that has never been seen before appears around the frog. He calls on dark magic for help. The sky becomes covered with clouds, and a black and red sphere forms there. Charlie continues to soar on the sparrow provided to him, but now he is all ears. He looks at what happened below, considering the spell terrifying. The demigod instantly killed all the skeleton warriors. The schoolboy is at a loss, not understanding what to do now. He will apply all his strength, but in vain. There is no sign of victory yet, but then it strikes him like a bolt of lightning when a respectful voice appears in his head, expressing a desire to fight, and the next moment several more echo it. Sitting on the bird, legs crossed, the schoolboy immediately understands that this is the windsword and his red orc blacksmiths. He believes that his creatures showed up in time. Since the new ones are not working, he will have to use the power of the old ones. The huge stone gates open, illuminating the space with their blue and lightning-like light. From the resulting passage, Sword appears, armed with his favorite blades, his bright mystical tattoo already glowing, announcing his combat readiness. Following the man, orcs appear no less ready for battle, passionately wanting to destroy the enemies of their master. They follow behind the swordsman, and the latter, in fact running first, seems to lead his comrades into attack. The sky lights up red and other voices appear in Charlie's head. The locusts ask God to sacrifice them for his victory, and it is as if a bucket of ice water is poured on him. A huge purple pillar, burning with the appropriate flame, rises into the air, performing the sacrifice of life. Charlie is surprised when he sees the reward. He didn't think it would be so timely. It seems like heaven is really looking out for him. Before the student's eyes appears a card showing the sacred flame of hope, which is a special item that dispels darkness and negative effects from creatures, as well as strengthening them, thanks to the sacrifice. Charlie holds the torch high, intending to dispel the darkness in his path. The frog's eyes become stunned. The schoolboy grins, his gaze becoming stern and at the same time anticipating victory when he says that finally their turn has come. The toad demigod is furious. Not understanding how such a weak artifact could dispel her dark spell, he does not want to believe it. And Charlie, illuminating his path and the paths of his comrades with the sacred flame of hope, proudly flies forward on Thunder Sparrow. The toads below grin viciously, wanting but unable to reach their enemy. A schoolboy flies up to a giant toad with a bloody mouth, remembering that it seems like it was the one that swallowed his classmate. He signals his comrades to deal with the mountain-eating toad as quickly as possible, and they agree, immediately rushing into battle with predatory smiles. Windsword also does not want to stand aside, rushing along with all the attackers. With coordinated teamwork, Charlie's creatures attack the giant. Finally, Cyan bursts out of the cut guts, helping with his lightning. She turns sharply, forming a ball lightning under her paws. The giant toad stands frozen in stupor for a moment, unable to figure out what to do. And at the same moment, a hail of blows rained down on her from all sides. Tyon leads the way, leading and directing his birds into battle, the space illuminated by lightning. And across the Earth's surface, red orcs are running towards the giant. Several explosions fill the area around, sending a nuclear column into the air. A giant skeleton knight joins the attackers. He throws small enemies around with his feet like tennis balls, causing them to run away in fear. The roasted toad spews curses, but it is clear that its end is near. It is exhausted. And then Charlie flies up to her on his Thunder Sparrow with a flaming torch, and the frog gets lost. Tyon doesn't want to lag behind and give all the laurels to her classmate. She also flies up to the enemy, emitting discharges. They roast the frog's body, illuminating the space with their power, and a wild cry bursts out from the amphibian's guts. After the attack is over, the frog falls to the ground, exhausted. Smoke rises from it into the sky, and a corresponding smell spreads throughout the area. Tyon turns to Charlie, saying that the deal is still in effect. As she said earlier, she only needs the frog's body. The classmate can take the rest for himself. The schoolboy, together with the sword, for safety, approaches the frog lying on the ground and angrily looking at the aliens. Her words are at odds with her condition. She asks to let her go, giving her anything in return. But Charlie mercilessly says that after her death, everything she owns will pass into his hands. The man raises his sword over the spread-eagled carcass. The sharp blade of the sword mercilessly and lightning fast rushes down, depriving the amphibian of its last moments. Half an hour later, Charlie and Kian stand in front of a huge pile of jewels. The girl in the form of a bird calms her classmate, asking him not to worry. She is not going to covet this prey. Charlie asks if she's sure. He doesn't mind if the girl takes a few artifacts, but she persistently refuses. She knows how to keep her word. A schoolboy places a crown on the bird girl's head, telling her to consider it interest on her debt. She, embarrassed, but pretending that this is not so, turns away and with an arrogant look says that, so be it, she will accept the given percentage. Tom praises Charlie. The school administration and representatives of some academies want to meet with the student upon his return. The man promises to collect the bones of his ward's skeletons himself. Upon returning, Tyon and Charlie follow Tom, who warns his charges to be extremely polite and courteous, as everyone gathered is a true god and it is better not to joke with them. The students enter the required room and, looking at those gathered, one of them wonders if they will notice the unique talent and ability of life sacrifice. The committee members start with the girl, asking about the family and body of the taken demigod, which Tyon is rumored to want to use to create a lord-type being, and asking about the amount of divinity. His neighbor is amazed to himself that Tyon, not being a demigod, wants to create such a powerful being. It is stunning, this man, like his colleagues at school, demigods, but could not do it. The girl confirms the speaker's words and names the amount of her divinity points. The man is again surprised by the answer. Her family had to spend millions of divine power. The man says that Tyon fully meets the requirements of all 3 academies, and once she creates a lord, she can safely apply to any of the academies. The girl thanks the committee member. Now the man, narrowing his eyes, moves on to her classmate. He says that the members of the commission have already had time to familiarize themselves with the students' results, and asks about his main representatives, and he agrees with what was said. The man immediately puts a dash in the column of representative of the sphere of gods. The man then asks about the number of divinity points. Charlie also agrees. Another cross appears in the questionnaire. The last question is about obtaining the skeleton lord and the heroic-type creature, Windsword. The guy is secretly glad that the commission doesn't know about his unique ability. It's to his advantage. Because he would like to keep this information secret, he says out loud that he doesn't want to answer. The man doesn't mind this. But in that case, Charlie definitely doesn't fit their criteria even though he took first place in the last 2 exams. But that can be fixed. To do this, he needs to maintain his leadership during the next exams. And Sawyer looks at the guy with disappointment when he says in an apologetic tone that it seems the committee members did not appreciate him as he deserved. But the guy is not discouraged, resolutely promising that he will still show what he is capable of at the entrance exams. The man who is interviewing him does not at all reveal from his appearance the emotions he must be experiencing when he says the following words. When he says that he wishes him luck. Tom touches his ward's shoulder in an encouraging gesture, saying that the higher academies have high demands, but there are also lower-level academies that should be more lenient. But the guy refuses. When Charlie leaves the office, he is greeted by Kian, who boasts about how she was invited by top academies, and asks about her classmates' expectations for admission. He says that everything is so. One day he will enter the Imperial Academy, he is sure. The guy remembers the promise he made to his grandfather. He is obliged to find his parents. Cian, embarrassed, says that she also wanted to enter this academy, and for a very long time, and then awkwardly encourages her, saying that while she is busy creating the Lord, Charlie has a chance. But the guy rightly notes that he is doing well without his classmate. She herself should understand. Because she saw the results. Becoming her slave makes no sense. The girl looks after him with rosy cheeks, telling the guy to think about it. Cian thinks he's an idiot in her mind, but she really liked the cute little skeleton form he was in. Charlie stands in his god realm with the card in his hands, his appearance expressing joy as he speaks the words of divine card absorption. He looks at the system windows with his own description and the descriptions of his creatures, both main and secondary, and says that of course he could buy better equipment, but the priority is different. First of all, he is interested in the development of his main representative, and to begin with, the guy is going to use the source of the fallen. A red flame flares up in his hand. In the clouds of dark haze, the main representatives of the schoolboy appear, beginning to circle around him in an intricate